Hello there, welcome back again to my YouTube channel for the second time today. I have a card for the Brutus Monroe blog once again, and this time I am going to grab out the stamp set called Flutter. This is a 6x6 stamp and it is gorgeous. So I have a piece of Neenah Desert Storm cardstock and I'm sticking that inside of my Misti, and I'm putting my Flutter stamp right over the top of that. And then I'm going to ink that up with some Raven Detail ink. I plan to do some alcohol marker coloring, and in order to do that, I want to make sure that I'm using an ink that would work well with the coat or the alcohol inks along with the paper, and these two work well. So I didn't get the best impression. It was a pretty good one, but I wanted to make sure that it was a good and crisp image. So I'm going to ink that up one more time and stamp that down once again, really pushing this time. I end up being super happy with how this stamps out. And so then I'm going to move on to the next step, which is I'm going to heat set this. So because I stamped it twice, I want to make sure that that is dry before I get to coloring. Otherwise I can definitely smear the ink, and I don't want that to happen. So I'm just heat setting that, and then I'll move on to coloring. I'm using my Arteza EverBlend markers, and I originally I was going to be really detailed because these images are very detailed, and I was going to make each butterfly one color but using variations of the color, and I do end up doing that, but I just don't focus so much on the detail. But I start off just using a lighter red tone here. I'm sorry that I didn't write down the colors or even put the marker caps on there, but with this set of 60 it's actually pretty easy to tell which ones are which. Here is where I started to try and focus a little bit more on those details, but I ended up not really caring for how it was turning out. And so at this point I decide to just focus most of my darker colors more on the center of each butterfly. And for some of the butterflies I use 2 colors, some I use 3. In the case of this red I do use 3. So I'm going to grab a darker red and really focus on the center, and then I will blend that color out with the next darkest color and keep doing that for each of the butterflies, and I'll go in rainbow order. So next will be orange, and so on and so forth. At this point I'm just going to go ahead and speed up the coloring because it's pretty self-explanatory, but yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and put that at about 4. So we are actually, as this is being loaded, we are most likely on our way home from the beach. We left last week to meet some friends from El Paso, and so we are probably on our way home right now, probably sad a little bit because they're getting to stay a little longer at the beach and we are having to come home a little sooner. As much as we loved El Paso, the one downside was that it wasn't near any water. We often would say that if El Paso was by water, that place would be so unaffordable because it's just such an awesome, awesome town. And so now that we live more on the East Coast, well, not really on the coast yet, but within a few hours of the beach, we are going to be taking advantage of that for as long as we live here. So this will be our first trip to the beach, but it certainly won't be the last one that we do. I imagine by next summer we will be making our way down there quite a bit more because yeah, we love the water. Even if it's just to look at it, I don't even need to get in it. I just want to look at it. And where we are right now is about 5-6 hours away. So we are definitely going to take advantage of that and eating seafood. So I'm sure by this point I've probably put on about 5 pounds from all the food I've eaten down there. And yeah. All right, enough about my sadness about leaving the beach. I am back to the coloring. And what I'm doing here is I'm just doing some outlining around those butterflies using some grays. I started with a darker gray. Typically I like to go lightest to darkest, but in this case it was not a big deal to start with the darker color just on the edges and then drag that darker drag the darker color out with the lighter color. And because I'm doing this on a Neenah Desert Storm card base, it is going to give you a little bit lighter look, which is kind of cool. If you have not colored on Neenah, I highly recommend you give that a try. Sorry I'm off screen here. I'm actually fussy cutting around those butterflies because I want that center to be cut out. And I am moving on to my card base, which is just a top folding A2 size card of heavyweight white cardstock. And look at how cool that looks. Just that pop of white on the back. And now I need to figure out my sentiment. So I'm actually going to use the sentiment that comes in the Flutter stamp set, which is a very nice, encouraging sentiment. And I am going to hold everything in place with my magnet, put my sentiment down so that I know where I want it, close the door of the Misti, and then remove my panel, and then prepare the card base to take some embossing. So I'm going to use the mic drop embossing powder, and if you haven't used this stuff before, I've used it a few times and I love this stuff. I'm just preparing my panel by using the magic powder bag, and then I'm inking up my stamp with embossing ink by Brutus Monroe, and I'll pull that out and I'll cover that with some of that mic drop, using a coffee filter to catch it. And the embossing bag did a really good job of not having any stray powder anywhere. This mic drop is gorgeous because it has bits of glitter or something in it, enough to make it sparkle, and it's beautiful. I let my heat tool heat up just a little bit before I brought it to my sentiment, and now it is all smooth and melted and shiny. I put some foam tape on the back of my panel, and now I'm just removing all of that backing paper, and then I will leave a little bit of a border on the top and the bottom. And then that's that. I did decide that I wanted to put some Spectrum Noir Sparkle pen over all of the butterflies, and I'm just pushing the little button to make sure that I'm getting some good coverage and getting the sparkle to come out. And you can't really tell right now, but this stuff puts out a lot of shine, and I figured, because I had the Believe in Yourself with some glitter in it, this would be so much fun to have those butterflies with a lot of sparkle. And you'll be able to tell a little bit in the light, but oh goodness, this card turned out so much prettier than I thought it was going to. As always, that's usually how it happens for me. But isn't that pretty? All right, that's going to finish off this card. If you liked this video, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And head on over to the Brutus Monroe blog. I will have that linked down below, and that way you can go and check it out and see what we've been up to. And as always, guys, thank you so much for stopping by.